It's now time for the Traffic and Parking Commission to call our meeting to order. I appreciate everyone being here. I see we have a quorum and we'll continue. One item I want to bring up, I'm going to, with the Commission's approval, the sergeant is here on one of our bills, and he's got another commitment. So with your approval, I'd like to hear him first. Is he still in the audience? Yes, there he is. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if the person wanting to appeal our decision from last month is here. I don't see. Is Mr. Carl Jones here?
He's not here, Chip.
So what I'm saying is there may not be any use in hearing Sergeant Keeter's testimony.
Okay. Sergeant, Mr. Jones is not here. So if he comes in at that time, we'll take you. If not, then we will not hear his case today. If you're not satisfied with the decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Do I have approval of today's agenda?
So moved.
Second. Have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Do I have approval of the minutes of November 12th?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So carried. In our old business, we have a request to appeal denial of an always stop at Brewer and Westlake Drive, requested by Council Member David Blaylock, District 27. Okay, will you come forward? Those that wish to speak, go to the speaker, to the lectern as she has done. Pull your mic down and there's a little red button there and be sure the mic is on. And also be sure and sign the letter there in front. Okay.
Did everyone receive the emails that I had forwarded? I think everybody was supposed to get a package of the stack of emails.
Speak a little louder, please. We can't hear you.
Did everyone get a packet with all the emails that I had received on this subject?
Hard copies are in front of you, the chair.
Okay.
We can pass those around. Just a quick update. A couple months ago, Council Lady was here, and she wants to always stop it. Essex and Brewer, is that how you say it?
Wessex.
My monitor doesn't work, Corby, by the way. And we deferred it at the request of Councilman Harrison. He wanted to hear from the neighbors on what their opinion was on the always stop. You've gotten some emails, and we've checked the emails, and they're legit. And so she's back today to say she's checked with the neighbors. And unfortunately, Councilman Harrison isn't here, but she's here to still give her case.
This is a traffic calming situation. There's been cars that wind up in the front of those homes in their yard, and that is the majority of the people who've been calling me complaining over the last year. You don't really have a lot of police reports because they just kind of go through the yard and leave. So this entire street needs a lot of help, and I think that on the other side of the street we have put a stop sign and it has helped a lot. And so on this side of Nolensville Road, having a stop sign here should take care of the majority of the speeding that we see down Brewer. So I request for approval on this. The neighbors definitely want it. So.
Staff, I apologize. I'd like to have your report on this.
All right, Corby. Again, our monitor's kind of in and out, but a typical four-way approach in a residential area, speed limit 30. I'm gonna have to turn back to see these numbers. We look for the 50-50 distribution of volume. In this case, we've got an 87%, 13% split. The accidents weren't there that we look for as a warrant, quote unquote, and sight distance meets what we look for. So again, you've heard my speech before. From engineering terms, we don't have a warranted always stop. And that's when we put it back on the council lady to go get the petition, to kind of throw in some other ingredients that we may not have in front of us as far as numbers go. Now, a couple months ago when we left this, if I remember correctly, it was about to pass when Councilman Harrison said, what do the neighbors think about it? And she went back out and got these 10 or 12, 15 emails that you see. But the numbers haven't changed. We didn't go back and restudy it or anything. The numbers are still that way. We as engineers can't recommend the installation of an always stop because these are the guidelines we have to go by. But now that you have the petition as requested, again, unfortunately, Councilman Harrison isn't here to get his side of it because it was his idea to get the petition. She has fulfilled that side of her responsibilities.
Okay, is there anyone else here that would like to speak in this behalf, for or against? Okay. Commissioners, any questions?
Question, is the traffic, refresh my memory about the traffic issue going down Brewer, is it speeding? Are we trying to slow cars down?
That is the majority of it.
And then has Mr. Word, has he been out and met with the neighbors on, or have we reviewed any other traffic calming ideas? I'm more asking for my edification.
Have you been to the East Tusculum meeting?
No, I have not been in contact with them as of yet. No, and that was I think at the last meeting when Councilman Harrison asked about going back or whatnot. That to my recollection, that didn't come up as far as doing that. So once again, if that is something that you would like to do over this next month or month and a half or whatnot, and come back and do it after that, I'd be more than happy to do so, or whatever the commission would like to, how they would like to handle it.
Is there a staff recommendation on that?
Corby, just for clarification, let's go through these slides real quick. Sounds like it's not fresh on our minds like it was to me this afternoon anyway. Where was the location you got passed recently on the other side of the...
The other side of Nolensville Road, it was it was not a four-way stop. It was just a
T-intersection.
Yeah. And it was Southcrest.
Okay, and my point being, similar circumstances, didn't meet warrants, and it was appealed.
Right.
And you came in, and that was approved by the commission. That was probably 6 months ago or so, 5 months.
Right.
Anyway, here's your slides in front of you. Typical four-leg approach in a residential area. Your sight distance is good. Coming around that curve, it's about 280 feet. The reason we just can't flat out say we recommend an always stop here is because we do not have the volume number. That's the main thing we look at. We don't have the accidents. We don't have these 300 vehicles versus 200 on the side street. And we don't have the need for protected pedestrian crossings. So, again, I've brought these to you many, many times where we just don't meet the warrants. It's very hard to meet always stop warrants. It's almost like you could meet signal warrants as easy as an always stop. But the use of stop signs for speed control is something I've always said is not a great idea, but we did approve one for her a few months ago, and we've done it in the past. The geometrics and the grades of this one would not be detrimental if you were to put in an always stop. You know, you don't want that downhill grade where people slide down or run the stop signs. We could try the traffic calming program with some 30-mile-per-hour markings or some other signage, but until you put objects in the roadway, which we're trying not to do, this would be about the best remedy for stop control or speed control at that area. Now, when they get away from the stop sign, they're going to speed right back up, but this will take care of that 1,500 feet or so. So our recommendation is it does not meet warrants, and we recommend it stay as is and go through the traffic calming program.
What did you say was the speed limit now?
Speed limit now is 30.
Is West 6 a dead end?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very short on one side. Go back, Corby. You can see it.
I believe there's just 4 houses on
One
that
leg is
street.
very low volume to the north.
That's...
Question. Question. Because later on in the agenda, there's a conversation, we're going to have a conversation about speed humps or speed bumps, because I think some proposed legislation by Councilman Staley. And the question is, I know in a lot of neighborhoods, people are would like to get speed humps sometimes instead of four-way stops. But there seems to be an issue with putting speed humps down as well, because there seems to be issues relating to emergency response vehicles, some of the things that have been laid out. And so if we can't do speed humps, then it seems that the only traffic calming device out there is to do four-way stops, and even those are not considered very an optimal solution. So any response, please?
Well, what we have with the traffic calming program is, as we've stated before, from least intrusive methods, which being striping, pavement markings, and whatnot, to most intrusive methods. The issue concerning speed humps and things like that is, I attend all those meetings, and you have a wonderful audience of people that all say, some on the left say we want that speed hump, some on the right say we don't want that speed hump. The people on the left that say they want the speed hump want you to make sure you put it in front of his house. Okay, they want it, but they don't want it over here. Okay, so there's a very difficult end to the speed hump, speed table situation. Okay, it equates to that, as well as to emergency vehicles. Getting in and out, because people, when your grandmother has a heart attack, you need that ambulance to get there as soon as possible. The emergency vehicles don't have the shock absorption that a normal vehicle has, and they've asked us to kind of stay away from that if we can. So it's not just, we have several things that we do before we try to do things in the roadway. And that little short kind of snippet of what I said is why. The phone calls that emanate to our office once you put something in the road are massive. And like I said, when you make that decision, the person whose house it's in front of is the first person that starts calling. And they say, why did you do that? I don't like that guy, no way. So, that's, like I said, it's not just from an engineering standpoint, but it becomes almost a political neighborhood situation. You know what I mean? We sometimes get trapped in the middle of neighborhood arguments, which we have tried to stay out of. So like I said, it's more to it than just, that's why we do the program step by step, least intrusive to most intrusive. After we do a step, which that be pavement markings, edge lines or whatnot, we go back to the neighborhood, see how it's working, let it go for a couple of months, see if the neighbors notice any change, and kind of go from there. I know a lot of people say, well, it's a slow process, but it seems to work.
So Chip, if we're not meeting the standards that we have, what other alternatives do we have without the four-way? And it just seems like it's going to be a long meeting today again. So,
well, your options are. I mean, we've approved these stops, these kind of cases before. We've put in the stops, and the neighbors monitor it, and we haven't removed one yet. The other alternatives are, like Benny said, the beginning steps of the traffic calming program, start having neighborhood meetings, maybe get to a point where you're putting down some markings or some signage, but it's still self-policing, if you will. Until you set a patrol car out there, people are going to probably violate the speed limit. Stop signs will slow them down within this 700 to 800 feet before and after the stop sign, but right after that, they're back up to their 45 miles an hour. So to answer your question, what are the alternatives? Short of putting a patrol officer out there all the time, the stop is about your only solution for that vicinity.
Okay, and that's what you're asking for, Councilor?
That is correct. And in the emails, you do see that there's police officers that, in their opinion, say that it would be good. So, I mean, frankly, I don't drive this street, but I had, when I first got elected, a year ago, I had people calling me saying, please do something about this. Come have breakfast with me on the front porch and watch these people. This is the Brewer 500. They're speeding. They're doing 80 miles an hour down through here. So, this is something that we need to do. Since we don't, I don't know anything else to do other than a stop sign.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners.
I want to make a motion to request, for this request, appeal to deny of always stop. Let's Go ahead and go with the council lady wants.
Repeat that, I'm sorry.
For this motion is, she wants to request appeal to deny of the always stop at Brewer and Wessex, and I want to make a motion to honor
To
that
approve it.
Okay. You heard the motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. Motion second. All in favor? Say aye. No? Any? Okay. It is approved.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I don't know. Next item on our agenda on our old business is 12 South Residential Permit Parking. This was deferred from November 12th, November the meeting. And understand our staff met with some of them and some of our commissioners last Saturday morning, so I'm going to ask for a staff report.
There was a neighborhood meeting on Saturday. At that meeting, the business owners and the residents come together. At this time, they were requesting a 1-month deferral for them to have additional meetings to discuss a solution to the problem.
So it looks like the merchants and the residents out there are trying to get together and come up with a solution. We have a recommendation from the staff.
I'd make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So approved. Okay. We have a request to appeal the recommendation to not remove the truck restriction on Swinging Bridge Road. Request by Mr. Powell Hawkins, District 11. I understand that this request has been, yes.
Well, Chairman, before we move ahead, I think the gentleman with the police officer has come in. Can we hear that one?
Okay, but I'm going to go ahead with this one because it's going to be short.
Okay.
We had planned to have a hearing today on this, and I understand Mr. Hawkins has asked that this be delayed or deferred. So with that, I make a recommendation that we take this off the agenda, and if he requests to be heard in the future, we'll bring it back and put it on the agenda. Do I have a motion to this?
So moved.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So approved. Sergeant, and it's Mr. Carl Jones. Did Mr. Jones come in? Okay, Mr. Jones. This is a request to appeal the revocation of individual vending permit number 169275, requested by Mr. Carl Jones. If you recall, we heard this, I believe it was last meeting, and so we'll, staff, do you want to make any recommendations or comments before we hear from the audience?
Not a whole lot. I think the officer tells the story the best, but by Metro legal advice, or maybe even by code or law, Mr. Jones does get to appeal the decision we made last month, and that's why the forum is here today for him to speak. So you need to hear from the officer and Mr. Jones at some point, and then take that information into account when you make your decision. Right now, as it's on the table, Mr. Jones' permit has been revoked. It is in the 15-day holding period that he gets to appeal. So right now, if nothing gets decided today, no action is taken to reverse that, the permit is revoked.
I'd like to take a moment to recognize Councilwoman Erica Gilmore, who's in the audience as well. And if it's all right with everybody, maybe give her opportunity, because she represents the district that the gentleman lives in, and she'd like opportunity to speak on this behalf as well. So if we could allow her opportunity to go, is that all right, pleasing with everybody?
Council Lady, we'll hear you first.
Thank you, Mr. Ward, and I would like to say good evening to everyone and happy holidays.
Thank you.
I am Councilmember Gilmore of the 19th District, and as they stated, it is the permitting incident or the issue is within the downtown code. And also, Mr. Jones is a constituent of mine. He had contacted me some time ago, and I do hate that I wasn't able to kind of follow up for him. And he had expressed that he was not clear about where he could sell because he had the vending license, so it was a little bit of frustration in where exactly he could sell and was not clear about. He said it all started with the fanfare awards of the CMA when he tried to sell some water, and that other individuals could sell. And then after further talking with Commander Reinbold, I explained to Mr. Jones that there's a particular area that you should sell within, and that the downtown code, those boundaries are not the area. So he and I spoke, and I said, you know, Mr. Jones, I know you have a permit, but we just really want to be clear as we move forward. I know you've had some incidents, you know, that if you're willing to sell outside of those boundaries and just be very clear about where you try to sell, start all over. And I will come down here because you're one of my constituents and ask that you could have your license because you are a small business owner. And he has paid the $500, and he explained to me he had some other costs to incur as well. And so I'm down here asking on his behalf that if he's willing to sell outside of those boundaries, that he be able to keep his license, you know, and just have a second chance. And I was kind of thinking there was some information that was sent to me, and I love Commander Reinbold because we work on many issues together, so we don't want to get at odds with the police there because there's so many things that we work on just being downtown and just different issues. You know, he sent me some information, but my point was, when I looked at it, I said, you know, well, some of these things are not good, but I said, my God, I hope nobody judges me about some of the things I've done in the past, and just being a council member, even though it's the same thing, we kind of want to move forward, be clear about what we do, and then just move forward from there. And then I spoke with Mr. Jones. He says he regrets some of the things that happened. It didn't kind of go the way that he wanted it to, and that he's a reformed person here. He really wants his license. He needs it. He doesn't have a lot of money, and so that's why I came down to ask on his behalf. And so I do hope that you would take that into consideration. And so thank you so much for your time, either way it goes. Happy holidays to y'all the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, we're going to let you speak and speak on your behalf.
Yes, sir. When I purchased these licenses back in June, and I received the ordinance clearly states street vendor.
Stand close to your mic so we can hear you.
All right, so the thing is, I complied with the rules. The rules is purchase the license to vend. And when I read the ordinance, according to the ordinance, I don't need a valid driver license, well, a permit from park or motor vehicles to operate my stand, push cart, or rack, as long as I'm mobile. So I wasn't doing them but being a public service during the summer where I was hot. I was selling bottled water, $1 bottle, run like I was price gouging, and selling the water in between 5th and 2nd Avenue. So right when Fanfare come along, Public Works put up the no vending sign from 5th Avenue to Riverfront Park. But I've been on 4th Avenue selling water all summer long. So after Fanfare was over, I tried to go down. That's when me and Council Jeffrey Keyser, all the case, I'm like, I got my license and my permit. He was like, you can't vend downtown. But any other officer, they approached me, Mr. Jones, you got a permit to vend. I produced my license, everything's fine. But then other officers, like, you can't vend. Some officers, the captain, they like, it's okay. To me, it seems like it's miscommunication. Because I've done the rules required that you purchase the license in order to vend. So I acquired the insurance. That was $500 and something. I came down to Howard School and purchased the license for $100. And I'm required to vend. The license clearly states that you're allowed to vend for 1 year before you get your license renewed. So I haven't done anything wrong. I feel like I'm being harassed for the simple reason I have the permit. And they ask for it, I produce it. Then it's one thing, one officer saying one thing is okay, another officer saying it's not okay. But when I started vending down there and I purchased my license back in June for the CMA, wasn't no vending signs from 5th Avenue to Riverfront Park. Wasn't none. Then all of a sudden Public Works put up these signs and it's confusion. So then, according to the ordinance, It clearly states stand shall mean any table, trap cart, display, browse, booth, rack, hand cart, push cart, wagon, or any other fixture or device which is not required to be licensed or registered by the Department of Motor Vehicles. So I just had a simple cooler with wheels on it I bought from Walmart. I'm selling the water. I'm a ticket vendor too. So I'm riding my bicycle, vending with the tickets in my hand. So I don't have to register the bike with the Department of Motor Vehicle or the cooler. Every time I look around, Sergeant Jeffrey Keys is harassing me about something. I had a permit. It gives me the right. Like an LP Fields, for instance, I'm coming over Pedestrian Bridge with my bike, with my tickets in my hand. The ordinance clearly states any public roadway shall mean evidencing vendor is a licensed permit to sell services and goods on the public way. So I'm coming across the pedestrian bridge going to the football game. You know how traffic be congested going in LP Field off of Shelby. So I'm on my bike, I'm coming through traffic, I got my tickets in my hand. The permit give me the right, public way. So I gets up to the Exxon station on Shelby Street to sell a guy a permit who been dealing with me over the years buying tickets and parking permit. Here come Keyser and the rest of the officers. Say I'm soliciting from the roadway. I'm like, Keyser Harris, I'm soliciting from the roadway. The parking permit gives me the right to vend. I don't need a valid driver's license or a permit to ride the bicycle in the public way. And so then they cited me. Instead of citing me one permit, they cited me 2, 3 permits. Outcome of it, I went to court, showed the judge the order. The judge dismissed it. Sometime away, Officer Keyser picked it up, turned it criminal. I'm at the Chicago Bear game. They arrested me. Take me in custody, but I wasn't never issued a citation or nothing to be booked or processed on because it's a misdemeanor. I posted bail, got my bike out of impound, and I went to his supervisor trying to figure out how could he do that after the judge did away with it. And that's why I'm here before y'all now. It's miscommunication. It's not on my behalf because I purchased a license and I really want to van. And I think it's miscommunication between Public Works and the Metropolitan Police Department downtown because you have special events. Special events is any event the city recognizes, okay? And if you want to van, the promoter have to allow, you want to vend, you got to go through the promoter. And he's only allowed to have so many vendors. Then once he's full and you still want to vend, then you have to go through Public Works. That's what I'm thinking the perimeter is for you can vend. So me, myself, doing special events, basically I sell tickets and stuff. I don't try to do no water. None. The only time I sell water is in the summertime. So
weather permitting, are you there the year round?
No, yes,
weather
sir.
permitting?
Yes.
Okay.
And only thing I'm saying is, it seemed like, just to be honest with you, like I said, if certain officers come down there, you got a permit, you produce a permit, you fine. Certain officers, you got a permit or not, you got to go. You know, and it's like now, it's the guy on 2nd and Broadway in front of no vending sign vending, but they trying to say he's on private property because he's in the parking lot, but he's vending. He got the same type of license I got. And then according to the ordinance, as long as you mobile, you can vend. If it's no special event, I feel like the no vending signs only good during special events because you got to go through the promoter, and the promoter is only allowed to have so many vendors. And then once he gets full, if you still want to vend, that's when Public Works come into play. That's how I'm reading the ordinance myself.
Okay. Before Mr. Jones leaves the podium, are there any questions that any of the commissioners has of him?
So I just want to make sure I understand your story correctly. So you were vending on 5th and 4th all the while, but then you had the country music and the CMAs come in, and then you couldn't vend there. But then when you returned back, thinking that you can go back to your regular spot,
right?
You weren't able to go back to that spot.
Right.
Again.
Basically, I was vending from 5th to 2nd Avenue. Okay. CMAs, I shut the water down. I started buying tickets, selling secondhand tickets, okay? CMA's over with the special event. I went back to vending water. That's when me and Sergeant Keys kept clashing. I'm like, I got my license, I'm following the rules, the ordinance clearly states. He refused to even read the ordinance. It clearly states push cart, hand rack, as long as it's mobile, you can vend. So I'm constantly moving throughout the night, selling the water. I'm not price gouging, $1 a bottle. If everybody remember, all summer long, 190 degrees heat index. The tourists are hot. It's hot out there. And they buying the water. I'm selling the water all the way up to 2 in the morning. I see the spokesperson for the Metropolitan Police Department, Don Aaron, the mayor come down through there, everybody. But during the day, he worked first shift. I come down about 1 o'clock. Oh, it's confusing. I'm like, Keith, I got my license. He go to ordinance. He's like,
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask him a question.
Okay, sure.
Were there any other vendors vending in that area where you were? Were you the only one?
No,
When you got arrested, I'm saying, were you the only one in that area that got arrested?
yeah, I mean,
were you the only vendor there?
right, in that area.
In that area,
From 5th to 2nd, because I'm with the cooler with the wheels on, I'm back and forth up the street. And the patrons is all over the city. They ask me for tourist information, Wild Horse Saloon, where's Bluebird Cafe. So I'm giving them information at the same time. They being courteous enough to buy the water. And it's not like I'm price gouging, I'm just selling the water, trying to make a buck. That's why I bought the vending license. It's an enterprise.
So are you clear on, are we clear from this point forward to where you need to vend and what's prohibited and what's not?
Yeah, I'm clear on that. But like I said, I think miscommunication come in between Public Works and the Metropolitan Police Department and the ordinance out of the mayor's office. Because the ordinance is saying one thing, Public Works is saying another.
Well, we're not going to get into this.
Well, let me ask Chip something on this. It seems like we're back. Another issue that we had this year, seems like we're back even with the vendors that have the trucks and all that kind of stuff. Is it clarity about where individuals can go and where they can't go? I mean, how is that information given out?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Regardless of what's going on personally here, it's a case of there's an ordinance and there's a code that says this gentleman can do this business. But then there's another set of regulations off to the side that's either passed by this commission or another body that says you're not allowed to vend on Broadway between 1st and 6th. I mean, I have the exact boundaries, but something like that. And you're not allowed to vend within 200 feet of Titan Stadium. All kinds of regulations have been put out there by different bodies and have passed. And whether you've got the latest version and I've got the latest version and everybody has the latest edition of these regulations is probably doubtful. And that's why there's a lack of communication. He's exactly right. All these bodies haven't put out one document that says here's where you can go. And we rely on the county clerk for that. I'm not trying to point fingers or anything, but when he gets his permit, they give out a set of rules. And that set of rules may be outdated, it may be unclear, and it may be impossible to follow, but that's what we rely on. And so right now, we're trying to put up these no vending signs. It's not a new rule that we made up. It's enforcing an existing, or actually assisting an existing rule, regulation. And so he's right. The communication is an issue, the documents themselves.
I have one more question.
Question for the staff, please.
Okay. It's like I said, Public Works and the downtown precinct. I'm under the consumption, the no vending sign go in effect during special event. The no vending signs is up now. Okay, it's no special event.
Well, let's clear that up right quick.
I have a question for the staff. I'm unclear as to exactly what his permit allows him or any vendor to do. A permit like that allows, what does it allow Mr. Jones to do, please?
It allows him to sell product as long as he lives by the code or follows the code. And I can't recite that.
Is it within a particular blocks? So
yeah,
if he's only...
I'm sorry, and there's been different ordinances passed along the way that apply to different buildings. You can't, like I said, LP is one ordinance in itself that you can't sell on Demonbreun. So to answer your question, the no vending signs on Broadway are 24/7.
Right. So I'm under consumption where when the no vending sign is no special event, we should be allowed to vend. Then doing special event, the no vending.
No, the no vending sign is what it says. No vending.
Okay.
Is that clear?
We're not trying to jump on you with that. That's part of what we're talking about, the communication.
Right.
We're just trying to clarify.
But that's what I assumed. When I read the ordinance, I'm following the rule, I'm riding the bicycle, vending with the tickets and with the cooler, vending mobile, okay? I purchased the license, I'm following the rules, period. So the thing is, when they put the signs up doing the CMA, so I'm under the consumption, that's a special event, so you can't vend. I stopped, okay? Then when the CMA was over, I started back to vending.
Okay, we're starting to repeat ourselves now.
I know, I'm sorry.
So let's move on. We got a busy agenda here, so go ahead.
Well, did the council lady have anything else that she'd like to add? Sure.
Thank you for the time. I just hope in the future it'd be more clarity. And if Mr. Jones seems like he cannot understand those boundaries, then I do not support that. But I do hope in the future as we move forward that all the different documents, I do think it needs to be some clarity in that. And whatever decision you go forth with, I mean, I think that's important. And if it seems like he's having difficulty understanding the boundaries with that. But to you, Chip, I do think between all the different departments, it does need to be unified, and I look forward to working with you on that if that's something I can do, and I have to go to another meeting. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Under the basis that there seems to be some issue of clarity in exactly what the gentleman may be able to operate on, what streets or whatnot, as long as are you willing to abide by whatever we establish. So we know now that with Lower Broad and the streets that you've previously been vending on.
No vending means no vending.
No vending means no vending. Right. So understanding that from this point forward, if you're acknowledging that you'll be able to abide by those rules and still be able to maintain your license, I don't mind giving you another chance.
I think we need to hear what Sergeant Keeter has to say.
Yeah.
I was leading to that at the proper time.
I have a question. Does Metro Legal, do you try to assemble all the staff is saying there's maybe conflicting or overlapping ordinances? Does Metro Legal take the responsibility to try to assemble those into some unified document so that when this gentleman or anyone else goes to the clerk to get their permit, they have an up-to-date document? I'm just trying to get a sense of the process.
Yeah, I am somewhat.
Pull your mic down, please.
I am somewhat familiar with this situation. I have been working with Public Works on it, and the county clerk's office issues these permits. And it is my understanding from talking to staff there that when they issue these permits, they give out both a copy of this Metro Code provision, 1308-040, which contains some of the provisions that govern this kind of permit. And they also give out a copy of the Traffic and Parking Commission sidewalk encroachment regulations, which were adopted by this commission many years ago, and that those regulations contain additional specifics about where and what restrictions apply to these permits. And because there was some confusion sometime within the past year, I think Public Works staff undertook to mount the signs to try to clarify the existing regulations and where they already prohibit it. They have some clearances and distances and stuff, and they went out, measured it all, and also incorporated all the provisions that were in the existing code and tried to put up signage so that it would be absolutely clear to vendors. And as has been indicated here, that signage is applicable 24/7, 365, not just during special events. So.
Okay. Sergeant Keeter, if you recall, was at our last meeting. And anything in addition to last month's comments or anything this
No, but
this
Mr.
month
Jones still needs some clarity on one issue, and that is he's never allowed to vend in the roadway. This commission and Metro government can't give someone permission for that. That's a state law. And he's been charged twice with that this year, vending in the roadway, whereas he's speaking up here of riding his bicycle in the roadway selling tickets. Completely illegal. There's no permit that can be granted. It's a violation of the state law. He's not allowed to sell in the roadway.
I agree with that. There's a Metro Code provision to that effect as well, and his permit is limited to a sidewalk encroachment permit.
and the set of rules he signed for when he accepted that sidewalk encroachment permit set out specific rules. There's no such thing as mobile vending on a sidewalk encroachment permit. If you read the regulations adopted by this commission, he's allotted 1 4-foot by 6-foot area to operate in, and there's several 15-foot measurements that go along with that, staying away from fire hydrants, doorways, parking meters. So there is no mobile vending anywhere downtown walking on the sidewalks unless by Metro's Legal's ruling, you carry all of your wares or merchandise upon your person. It was explained to Mr. Jones, simply get a hand cart that you carry. You can sell water everywhere downtown. He refuses to do that. He's been shown the signs. I've had a dozen encounters with this man on Broadway and 2nd Avenue, the only streets I've ever talked to him on, except when I've caught him vending in the roadway on Shelby Street. He says those signs don't apply to him. I don't know how many times a police officer has to tell you that this is the law, you can't do this. And he says, no, I'm doing this. You look at his criminal record, obviously, he doesn't care much for the laws. I've got pending charges bound over for February on him. He's got several others. I don't know what to tell you. He's not a good representative of a street vendor. He continually breaks the laws. He stated he's going to keep doing that.
Okay.
I see no reason not to revoke his permit.
Okay. Thank you, Sergeant. Mr. Jones, I'm not asking you to speak, but I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Did you understand what the sergeant just said?
Yeah, I can understand.
That you cannot vend in this particular manner.
Okay.
Are you willing to abide by that before this commission makes any motion?
Yes, I'm willing to.
And are you willing for your license to be revoked in the event the sergeant comes back to us that you are in violation of this? Are you willing to do this before this commission votes?
Yeah, I'm willing to do it.
Now, are we going to see you again up here?
No, sir.
Okay. Commission?
I make a motion to revoke the license.
We have a motion to revoke the license. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second that Mr. Jones' license be revoked. All in favor say aye.
Let me get some clarification first on that terminology of the motion. Legal, can you help us out? Because it's already been revoked.
Yes, sir, that's correct. The provision that, the provision that we're under currently does say a permit holder or applicant whose permit is suspended or revoked has 15 days to request reconsideration of that action by the commission. And so basically this would be your reconsideration of that action.
So we're agreeing to continue with this revocation.
His permit's been revoked, is that correct? I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the decision before us today is his appeal. So
To rescind
the revocation.
It's technically a request for consideration, but yes.
No. A request for consideration would mean that so he'll start over without a revocation, basically, or is there another process? Because I mean, it's a request for consideration. Is this the consideration, or does this move on to another step?
This is the request for reconsideration. Okay. If you guys determine to keep the revocation in place, then he would have a right of appeal by writ of certiorari to the Chancery Court, as the chairman announced at the beginning of the meeting. If you guys decide to reconsider your prior action. I'm sorry.
Speaking to you, Mike, I'm having a hard time hearing you over here.
Sorry. I was saying there are a couple of options, basically, that you guys can either keep the revocation in place that was adopted at the last meeting and confirmed by your affirmation of the minutes earlier today, and you can, and then he would have the right of appeal by writ of certiorari to the Chancery Court from that decision, as the chairman was explaining at the beginning of the meeting, the announcement that's always made. And if you guys decide to reconsider your prior action of revoking his license from the November meeting, then you can roll it back, basically give him his permit back.
I'd like to make a comment and I guess maybe roll it into a motion. I know there's a motion on the table to revoke his license. I would be inclined to rescind the revocation for a number of reasons. One being that we've stated clearly on this board that there is some confusion, some very obvious confusion between the departments and what can and cannot be done. Now, I understand that, and I appreciate the officer from last time, and I voted last time to rescind or to revoke the license, but I would be willing to reconsider it if we don't have this problem going forward. And I think that's a really easy thing to monitor, because the officer will be back down here to let us know that he has violated that as quickly as he would violate it. But for us to admit that there is some confusion among the rule of thumb of what he's able to operate on, then I would say that I would give him some consideration for that. Secondly, I also would say that the fact that the councilwoman took her time to come down here to also appeal to us to give him a second opportunity to do this would suggest that this may be a fresh start for him to be able to start over and maybe operate by the rules now that we've clearly defined that. But if we come back this way again, it will be completely...
Keep in mind, we have a motion.
Okay.
And a second to revoke.
Okay.
I have... Before you can vote yes or no. But we're voting now on do we revoke. We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, I have more questions before I feel I'm able to cast a vote.
Okay.
I would like to know...
We're open for discussion.
Okay. I would like to know either from the staff or from the police officer or whoever, how many of these type permits are there? Anybody have any rough idea how many of these permits have been issued for this area? Has the officer had problems with any other vendor? Because I'm assuming the reason why this issue's for us is due to the quantity of issues, just not the fact that I assume there may be issues from time to time. So I'm just trying to get some sense of understanding as to, is it the case that only this gentleman doesn't understand the rules, or do other people not understand the rules? Because to me it's still unclear as to whether or not, I think it's been established that the rules may be a little unclear, but do other people seem to understand them? So I'd like some clarification, please.
But John, when it says no vending, that's what it means on the street. That's what it means. And it says that you can't go up and down the road like Popsicle Man going through the community.
Yes. Working in downtown area and also working every home Titans football game and every major event at the arena and LP Field, I deal with vendors constantly. East Side River vending laws are different than West Side River. East Side, you can only vend in 2 places. Because of the nature of the money to be made there, we have several vendor issues. You only deal with people once, maybe twice. We don't want to interfere with anybody's ability to make a living. They're providing a service, and so we work with the vendors. We just make sure they work within the bounds that have been set for them. This is the only gentleman we deal with on Broadway. At night that we did, when the signs went up after the CMA was over, people couldn't grasp it at first. None were cited. They were coached along. A dozen encounters with this man did not result in any positive gain. The person he complains about at 2nd and Broadway, they bought a spot on private property. They're not really a vendor any longer. They're a business. They do not have to meet any rule of a sidewalk encroachment permit because they're not encroaching. So this gentleman is unique in his circumstance, and that's why he's the one that's here. We deal with out-of-state guys. They don't even get a warning. They get their citations immediately. We take their product from them and put it in the booking room because they're the ones that are more problematic for the people trying to come and enjoy themselves at like Titans events. They're the most likely ones to steal from people. And so I have contact with a regular 20 to 40 vendors every week. And this is the only man I've ever arrested.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Any other comments from the commissioners or questions? Are we ready to vote? We have a motion and a second to revoke. Now, a show of hands. All in favor of revoking Mr. Jones' license, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All against? 1, 2. Motion passes to revoke. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our next item on our agenda under new business. We're ready to hear from Council Member Mr. Stanley. Mr. Stanley is here on bill number BL 2012-284, an ordinance amending Chapter 12.13 of the Metropolitan Code pertaining to the use of speed cushions as a part of the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. Councilman, before you speak, I'm going to ask for comments from our staff, kind of bring us up to date, and we'll hear from you.
Corby, you've got a picture of a speed cushion just to help everybody get on the right page. Speed cushion is kind of like the old speed hump that you heard about, except it's kind of a material that gives when you run over it. The intent, of course, is to slow vehicles down. They're not common in Davidson County because of what Benny spoke to earlier about the traffic calming program, but they are in our toolbox should we get to that point. It's not like we've eliminated them outright, but you got to get to that certain point in our program. Our program's put in place for a reason. We get to know the neighbors. We get to know how they feel. They get to have input into the program as a whole. It might take a while, but everybody's on the same page usually when we get to the end, right? Usually. So that leads us to this ordinance. I understand what the councilman's trying to accomplish. It takes the ball out of our hands. It takes the calculators out of our hands and any decision making out of our hands and puts it into the hands of a petition, simply saying if you get a petition that you want a speed cushion, you get one. No public works involvement, no commission involvement, no involvement whatsoever from any other body. I can't read these rules in front of me here. Like I said, my monitor's bad, but it's something along the lines of we're worried about this being a violation of Metro Charter, saying that a petition can manage the roadways, whereas in the charter it says public works should manage the roadways. There's lots of reasons for that, as you can imagine. Eliminates the use of engineering practices, which is why we're here. The proposed ordinance could increase emergency response time. Depends on how these things are installed, but that's very likely. I mean, they're there to slow traffic down. You can install them to where you can straddle them with the wheelbases of the larger fire trucks and ambulances. There's a drainage issue that you have to consider. There's grade issues that you can't just put these things anywhere. There's also the neighbor issue that you don't want them anywhere. We have a neighborhood traffic management program that we'd like to see utilized as opposed to just an ordinance that says you must do this. And we involve the neighborhood, and that's what all this says at the end there. These notes were put together by Mark. I know you know him, and he wanted me to pass those along to you. So I think you've all read the ordinance. I don't need to sit here and read the ordinance. Councilman Stanley may go over that in more detail. Our position is we went to school to be engineers. By charter, we're supposed to make this decision. We do not want it put in the hands of a petition. The petitions that you see, you saw one today for an all-way stop. They're for information. They don't make you make a decision. They're just for your input. We bring petitions in on residential parking. We're going to have one next month. That doesn't say you've got to pass it. It's just for information. This ordinance states that if you get a petition, the speed cushion goes in. No decisions to be made. With that said, we'd like to, this is a recommendation to council. This is not a yes or no. This is just your recommendation to council. We are asking that you recommend denial to council. And with that, Councilman Stanley.
I appreciate Chairman Ward and the commissioners for listening to me at this time about this ordinance. Really, this ordinance is an attempt to address some of the noticeable subtractions that have been associated with this neighborhood traffic management program. Back in 2008, this Hickory Hill Lane that I represent, it's in District 14, it was placed in the neighborhood traffic management program. There have been about 3 or 4 engineering techniques that have been used on this Hickory Hill Lane. It's less than a half mile long, but it's they've had 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 traffic or engineering techniques that have been tried to be used, and they've failed miserably because the vast majority percentage of people that access this street, this is a narrow residential 2-lane street. The vast percentage of people that access this street on a daily basis in the morning and in the evening are Wilson County residents, because this street is in close proximity to Wilson County. They come down Hickory Hill Lane. Of course, now Hickory Hill Lane is part of the Stones River Estates and Hickory Hill Lane, Hermitage Hills subdivision residential district. It includes 1,375 homes on 426 acres, and it's served by 39 traffic streets, residential arteries. These are narrow 2-lane streets. They were built by the developers to accommodate the traffic generated from the subdivision alone. They were not used or not put there to be used as shortcuts. Now, the people out in Wilson County and Old Hickory, they want to use this street as an access, as a shortcut between Old Hickory Boulevard and Lebanon Pike. I've got information here I want each commissioner to have. I'll let you pass these around. It's information I have.
Can we get some way this picture could be zoomed out so we can see where the cut through is?
I think it's important to understand that Hermitage Hills Stones River Estates Residential District is located between the Old Hickory Boulevard, State Route 45, 5 lanes, and Lebanon Pike State Thoroughfare, State Route 24, 5 lanes. And there are 4 traffic signals on those thoroughfares. Now, by accessing this Hickory Hill Lane by Plantation Drive off Hickory Hill Lane, off Old Hickory Boulevard, they access Plantation Drive, go down Plantation Drive to Hickory Hill Lane, go down Hickory Hill Lane to Lebanon Pike. And they can miss all 4 traffic signals. Now, by doing that, they feel they can obtain their destination as quick as possible. They want to get through Davidson County. They live in Wilson County. They do not pay for these streets. They do not pay for the maintenance of these streets. These streets are maintained by the tax-paying citizens that live on the side of these streets. Now, I want you also to see this. Commissioner. This street, Hickory Hill Lane, can be primarily divided into 2 sections. Section 1 is from Bonner Creek Drive intersection near Plantation Drive to Bonner Side, and there is virtually hardly any sloping angle on that street, on that section of the street. So there should be no issue whatsoever in placement of speed cushions on this section. Now, section 1 is the section that I have. It's between Bonaside and Lebanon Pike. It's got a 15-degree angle. I don't want to put any traffic calming devices there. I think that would be adversely impacting a number of residential people, as well as the people that access the commercial businesses and religious facility that is located here. I think it's important to have this traffic calming device. Speed cushions are not speed humps. They are not speed bumps. I came in through a private shopping center on the way to this meeting, and there were speed bumps all throughout the parking lot of that shopping center. Speed bumps they will maintain the low level of speed that is needed for these shopping centers. Speed cushions are things I think that could be a notice to people that are accessing these streets improperly to get to their destination as quick as possible, and they also provide they could be a excellent notification to these people that these speed cushions will be beneficial, and they are located on this street. So if traffic is coming down through this street, the speed limit is 30 miles an hour on this street. But the traffic speed coming down there is tremendous. In the morning and in the evening, it can get up to 50, 55 miles an hour. Those cars are just wanting to get through this subdivision as quick as possible. Now, I think it's important that we understand that emergency response vehicles, we look at that. Back in 2000, there was a study done out of Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas has a traffic calming program similar to Metro Nashville. They have speed humps, speed cushions. They use speed cushions. But they did a study in 2000, and they showed that there were no adverse impacts on the response time from emergency response vehicles to the sites, because emergency response vehicles have much wider axles than do domestic cars. I want Metro Nashville to stand tall, to show some teeth with this program. This street has been in this program for over 4 years, but nothing has worked. Now, a number of residents have come to me and requested, what about speed cushions? Back in July, I had a community meeting. I met with Public Works, and Public Works addressed the community. And the Public Works officials informed me that speed cushions are something we don't like. We don't like to use. We don't like to use those at all. But I told him, and I let the residents voice this, they were in support of speed cushions on Hickory Hill Lane to cut down the speed limit, cut down the speed of the automobiles accessing Hickory Hill Lane on a daily basis. But they said, no, they will not use it. They said they will not use that unless it's signed by petition. A petition will have to be submitted that's signed by over 3/4 of the resident homeowners that live on this street. What's more, it's not just resident homeowners. It can be any property owner. Now, one of the properties on this Hickory Lane is Pine Brook Apartments. That's a 134-unit apartment complex. But I found out that the title holder of the apartment complex is a corporation that's located outside of Tennessee. So we could never get the title holder to sign any petition. But this section of Hickory Hill Lane between Bonnet Creek and Bonnet Side has 35 homes on it. 35 single-family homes. These are tax-paying citizens that want to work with the engineers of Public Works, but they want to continue to have speed cushions have them considered in the use of this traffic calming. If speed cushions are not used in this traffic calming, this program is just it's failed miserably. But I will say that Davidson County represents a 502 square mile county in the state of Tennessee. It's got 626,000 people living in it. And the streets that have been accepted by the Department of Public Works for the traffic calming, they represent a variety of streets. They could be 5-lane streets, they could be 2-lane streets, they could be angled streets, sloping streets, straight streets, curved streets, whatever. But I think that as representatives of an urban county, we have an obligation to make sure that if we're going to initiate any program like this, we need to make sure that the people that are going to be affected, the people that want to have their street located in this program are going to be adequately represented in this official process. I have finally this thing here. It's a petition I want to submit to the commission. It's only partly complete, but it shows a number of the homeowners on this street, Hickory Hill Lane, that would like to have these speed cushions installed. Now, if you only put speed cushions are 72 inches wide. So you can put about 3 on that 61 wide street. And that would still give adequate room for emergency vehicles to get in and out of the street. And what's more, it would provide an adequate access, it would provide adequate notification to the non-resident commuters that this street is not possible to access to get to Lebanon Pike or to Old Hickory Boulevard in a quick manner. This bill does not remove Public Works or the traffic engineers from the planning whatsoever. It simply states that if a majority, 55% of the homeowners on a street that is accepted in the traffic calming program, if they want speed cushions, then traffic engineers will have to work with them to make sure that they come up with a plan that is acceptable and workable. The current plan has not been workable. It has not provided any regulation. It has not reduced the non-resident commuters from accessing the street. So I just feel like this ordinance is going to benefit Metro Nashville and the tax-paying citizens of Metro Nashville in general.
Thank you, Councilman. Do you have anyone else in your district that would like to speak?
Yes.
Also, be sure that you sign the register there at the front table if you wish to speak. Please identify yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is R.J. Tazalar. I live at 2028 Hickory Hill Lane. I've been involved with the traffic calming program, trying to get the traffic slowed down on our street since the beginning. Prior to 2008, I know that we met. And I just want to outline a couple of things from the perspective.
I forgot to remind the councilman a 3-minute limit.
Thank you.
So I'll remind you.
I can comply with that.
Okay.
We want slower traffic on the street. And we've been involved with the traffic calming program since prior to 2008, and we've not seen an appreciable change in the traffic speed. When you talk to the traffic calming program, to Benny Word, and when they come to visit, they'll tell us you're not going to see a big difference. You're just going to see a small incremental change, and that may be the case. The average speed will come down from 45 miles an hour to 44.5 miles per hour. The changes that are offered by the program are very, very small. And because we have been involved with this over a period of time, we have not seen an appreciable difference, and we'd like to see that accelerated. And the councilman here is trying to help us to achieve that. We are interested as the neighbors to try the speed cushions. That's what we want. And our perception is that it's just strongly opposed to the point of it's just not going to happen. So I think what the councilman is trying to do is to help us get that. And so that's what we ask for is I don't want to bypass Public Works. I don't think anyone on the street wants to bypass Public Works. I think we want speed cushions. I think we want to try them for a while. And if there's a way that we can agree to a method that we get to try them for a while, I think that's what we'd like.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you sign the paper there?
I have a question.
Just a minute. I'm going to refer to Chip, and then I'm going to refer to legal. I've asked legal to speak to this. Chip, have we done any studies out there, speed studies or traffic volumes?
Well, Benny was just whispering to me that he's been out there a few times, and I don't know if he's got the data in front of him, but
I don't. Mr. Mace has been working with the council on this, and I don't have the data in front of me as far as what has gone on. We have met there a couple times. Just like I said previously, the program runs from least intrusive to most intrusive method. I think, I can't remember exactly now what we quote as being our percentage, but 55% of the people wanting something in the neighborhood is not very good. Not enough. When you talk about the speed cushion situation, like I stated kind of jokingly before.
Well, let's get back to my question.
No.
Do you or do you not have?
We don't have any data. I don't have no data with me right now.
Okay, that was my question. Okay. So I'm going to refer to legal.
Okay. Well, let me add that we're here to talk about this ordinance and not particularly that Hickory Hill Lane itself.
Yeah, right.
Well, I have the memorandum with the points that Mr. Macy had prepared before, and I've looked over that and spoken with him about it and with Chip about it. I think that there are some concerns in terms of consistency with both the charter and with prior provisions of the code. As far as the charter is concerned, the Department of Public Works is responsible for, pursuant to Section 8402, the design, construction, maintenance, repair, and cleaning of roads, highways, streets, alleys, storm sewers, other public places, bridges, viaducts, and other related structures, which is pretty general, but does make it clear that, all things streets are basically part of the jurisdiction of the Department of Public Works. And then there are also some specific provisions in 11904 of the charter that relate to what Traffic and Parking Commission specifically has jurisdiction over, and there are certain designated items like parking and signage and speeds and truck restrictions and so forth that are specifically dedicated to you all for decision making. Traffic calming is not on that list, so it seems like it would probably fall within the area that maybe belongs to the Department of Public Works, but not necessarily to the Commission. I mean, I think there's probably some overlap there depending on what types of devices are being used for the traffic calming purposes. Speed bumps speed cushions aren't specifically referenced. The only reference I can find that I think would probably encompass them is actually in Chapter 1212. There's a definition of official traffic management device, I think. That
is your mic on? I can't hardly hear you.
I may just be talking from the wrong direction.
Okay.
But there's a definition in Chapter 1204. Title 12 is the title of the Metro Code that kind of speaks to traffic. And there's a definition of official traffic management device that I think arguably would include speed cushions. And then Chapter 1212-010 says that the Department of Public Works, and specifically I think the Chief Traffic Engineer, has authority about the placement of those devices, beyond what this commission does. So I think the present system does kind of give that to the discretion of the engineering staff of Department of Public Works. I can't really speak to the safety issues of that. I would kind of defer to the engineers as far as that's concerned, like with a specific situation or slope or, dangers there would be to placement of traffic, of speed cushions at just the discretion of the 55% of the residents of the neighborhood.
Okay, let me ask you this. As it pertains to this particular question, in your own words, sum up what you just said.
I think that traffic calming generally and speed cushions generally are not explicitly among the types of devices that this commission usually determines where they're placed. So it seems to me that the Department of Public Works determines where they're placed, and that's what the charter and code specify currently.
Okay, now, there's some commissioners.
My concern, it was a great presentation from the councilman. What's brought before this commission is not this area. It is this amendment, and we need to deal with the amendment. This area seems to be something that needs to be brought up separately. But what's brought on our agenda today is not the presentation we heard from the councilman dealing with this particular part of town. This is an amendment that says that whoever makes a petition, gets enough people to sign it, 55% of people to sign it. I don't have a lot of people on my street, so it wouldn't take a whole lot to get one put on my street without my involvement. But the amendment reads that if 55% of the neighbors agree to this, that's it. That's it. I guess, Benny, you all have to go out and decide, fight with whose house is going to be in front of, but the issue is not this area of town. I think that needs to be brought back, because I understand what you're saying there, and I'm familiar with that part of town. So I think that needs to be brought back some other way for us to talk about some of the issues that some things we could put in place to help you there, and I'm more than willing to deal with that. But I think what's on the agenda today is this amendment that's been brought before us.
In addition to that, I just have a specific question. Is your ordinance, which is going to be a citywide ordinance, based off of this one area of town? Is that where you based your ordinance from?
Yes.
Okay.
Question. Is it okay? Yeah. What's the current process to get speed cushions installed? Because I'm most familiar with the ones on Lombardy Avenue, and in my driving around town, I have not come across too many. And then my second concern is that this 55% threshold is so low. Chip, I'm sure you would agree. I think there's certain parts of town, there'd be speed cushions on every street within a 2 or 3 square mile area if this was the threshold.
Yes. Well, our traffic calming program, like everything else, is dynamic, and we've learned over the years since those were installed, things have changed. Although I say it's part of our toolbox, it's in that back corner that we hardly ever get to. We prefer education, we prefer the least intrusive tactics, because there's a lot of friction that comes with these things. No matter if you get 55, you got 45 they don't want them, and there's a lot of friction that goes with devices like that in the roadway. What I think for legal, and I think the question in a nutshell was, what's our liability if we pass this? And I think it's very high. I think if you just say a petition is now your engineering warrant, you're opening yourself up to some serious liability, because in engineering world, a petition doesn't mean anything. You've got all these numbers and guidelines that you go by. So whenever I hear somebody say we need a petition to decide whether to put a stop sign in, I cringe a little bit, because that's not what you should base it on. It's not a popularity contest.
Chip, let me ask you a question, because off West End, over by NBA, there's some streets back there that have some speed bumps over there. So there is a way on public streets to solve their situation. If it came back, we could look at that.
There is a way. These are approved devices. I mean, they're not just built in somebody's garage. They're professional devices, and that's why I say they're part of our toolbox. It would have to be just to be serious with you, just to be candid, it'd have to be a very serious situation for us to put an item in the roadway that could slow down traffic or could cause a conflict between neighbors, because we've had it happen before. We've learned from experience.
So, so back to the to the councilman's issue. Not to my knowledge, of course, I've only been here a little over a year now, but not to my knowledge, have we seen them before on this particular issue for that neighborhood? Because it seems that the particular issue is about a neighborhood that you're concerned about, that you represent, but this is a citywide ordinance. So there's kind of a bit of a discrepancy, in my opinion, between the two. I would be more than happy to see you on the individual issue for your community, but I would not be in favor for one community to dictate what the entire city is able to do and what Chip and our staff is able to do and recommend, because they are the trained professionals to be able to recommend that. And again, I also concur that the 55% is extremely too low to start throwing speed. I don't want to say bumps. What was the proper term? Cushions. Speed cushions. And
they have put some of these in Madison on the street. It slows down the traffic, but the teenagers, after they get over them, squalling tires, so the people that got them don't want them now. But the biggest problem, what it does, it makes the traffic move to another street, so you've got the same problem one block up.
I was thinking, you remember this just a few years back. We put them in Valley Brook in the Green Hills area.
Yes, sir.
And what happened is the people drove over the lawns, the private lawns of people. So these houses, so these speed bumps had to come up. Any kind. I don't know what kind they were, concrete or rubber.
Asphalt.
So it's.
If I understand this amendment, if all we had to have was a petition, then it would take the control away from traffic and parking.
And from Public Works, the way I understand. I mean, I'm sympathetic to the council person's issue, and the issue on this street with residents, because this is an issue around town. I mean, it was up here before us earlier with the four-way stop. But at the same time, I tend to think this particular approach is too blunt of an instrument and would take discretion away from the department, which I think would not be a good approach. So I'd like to make a motion that what's the particular motion we need to deny this amendment? Not recommend. I think that's what the
Okay, we have a
issue.
motion not to recommend. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are we ready to vote? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. So moved.
Can I say one thing on this matter?
Sure.
But if you all could get back with Benny or Chip, I think we all want to help you with this issue. So it's not counting that down. I just don't want your community to tell me in my community what I'm going to do. But if y'all can get it back as quick as possible, I think we really want to deal with this issue over there.
Councilman, I'll echo that. We want to help you, but we just don't think this is the way to do it. So if you will get with our staff, appreciate you being here, appreciate your constituent being with you. We're going to move on now to proposal 2012M-14AB-001. This is on our consent agenda. We'll have two items here, and we'll need a hand vote on these. If you want to pull either one of these for discussion, we'll do so. If you recall, on our consent agenda, items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed. Do you want to hear both of these at the same time? Okay. First item is a request to abandon a portion of Wyoming Avenue, easements to be retained, adjacent to properties located at 4100 Wyoming Avenue and 4022 Media Street, requested by Dale and Associates. The next item is proposal 017AB-001, a request to abandon a portion of alley number 207 and 209, easements to be retained between Hume Street and Taylor Street, requested by Little John Engineering Associates. You want to hear both of these at the same time, so I ask for a motion.
I so move.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any discussion on these? All in favor? This will be by hand vote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, 4. Okay, we'll move on. On the next item, we left out a word here. This is a request to provide volunteer complimentary parking in the library garage from February the 5th through the 10th, 2013 for the Antique and Garden Show. And I'm going to ask Ms. Marshall to give us a staff report.
The commission has approved this item for the past 3 years. This is for volunteers while they're working at the Antique and Garden Show at the library. According to the contract with the Nashville Downtown Partnership, any request for complimentary parking must be approved by the commission.
And your recommendation?
Recommend approve.
Okay, we have a recommendation to approve. All in favor? Well, give me a motion first.
So moved.
In a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So approved. We're back to our consent agenda. And on any of these that you want to remove and discuss, let me know. If not, we'll vote on these at one time. Authorized stop sign on Starliner Court at Starliner Drive. Authorized stop sign on Gwynn Drive at Masonwood Drive. Install no left turn 7 to 9 a.m. on Gallatin Road at North 11th Street. Install no left turn 7 to 9 on Gallatin Road at Ordnance Place. Install truck prohibition signs on Old Harding Pike at Harding Pike to Post Road. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second?
Second.
Any discussion on any of these? So moved. We can voice vote on this one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
No? So approved.
Just what does truck prohibition mean? I mean, delivery trucks are excluded?
Correct.
Yeah.
This particular one has 16,000 pounds or more as their limit.
Okay.
And deliveries. You can deliver.
Also, we need to include in our consent agenda to approve a parking report and engineering report. Do I have a motion on that? Second? All in favor? Aye. So approved. Next item on our other business is our mega bus. So I'll ask staff to give us a report on that.
Yeah. Was it just last month or month before we removed those spots effective January 1st on Commerce Street? And I believe a couple of you were getting phone calls asking, well, where are we now? What do we do now? And I think I've given the indication that we're called in a tough position, that we're a public agency and this is a private business, and so we help them just like we would help a citizen or any other public person or agency. So we've met with representatives from Megabus. They've come to us with 9, give or take, locations that they would like us to look at. We're looking at those now. They mostly range from the Rosa Parks area, Charlotte Pike area, but the 8 out of 10 are on private property or other non-metro property, not public works. Farmers Market's one site, LP Field parking lot, which would go through Sports Authority. What we've asked Megabus to do is to come to us with these sites. We will look at it with blinders on from a traffic and sidewalk perspective. And if it passes that test, we've asked Megabus to go back to the surrounding area and get the input from those businesses or houses or whatever it would be. And before they come to the commission, have that information ready and we'll present the traffic component and they'll present the PR component, if you will. Because the only thing that would be presented to you guys would be the bus parking only signs. Whether it's private buses or public buses, it's a bus. So to give you an update, we're working with them now. Effective January 1st, those spots on Commerce are gone. And as of right now, you don't have anything before you to approve. Legally, Metro Legal, I think they're allowed to pull up in a bus parking area or any other space that's not in violation right now It's these other extracurriculars that the police department has to look out for. Talking about bus parking, right now there's not an ordinance or anything that prohibits them that we're aware of anyway, at least this panel. So your update is we're working with them. Nothing's going to be in place by January.
Okay, this is just a matter of information to us since we discussed its last meeting, and no action will be taken. Before I refer to the sergeant, because I know he's going to make a motion, I want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas. Hope you have a happy holiday season.
Thank you.
Thank you for being patient with us in these long meetings. And our next meeting will be January the 14th.
Question. Who put up these great signs throughout the city?
Public Works.
They're just wonderful.
No, what are you talking? What signs are you talking about?
Those are the wayfaring signs that you see around town that are.
I guess they're beautifully done and very informative.
Yeah, that was a project that did go through Public Works, but we worked with a lot of different agencies, and some of it even had some federal money tied to it, so the state was involved. But thank you for the compliment, and it wasn't me sitting at this table that did it. There was a lot of people.
I didn't see you working out there.
Yeah.
Firstly, I want to thank all the commissioners for working with me, and I thank the staff, and wish you a Merry Christmas. Sergeant?
Happy Hanukkah.
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any opposition?
Not serving dinner?
We are adjourned.